Now we're going to move on to the subject of Flight PS 752. Our next speaker is Mr. Jawad Soleimani, who lost his wife Elnaz Nabiyi on Flight PS 752. He is also the chair of fact-finding committee for Association of Families of Flight PS 752 victims. Mr. Soleimani, it's been more than a year since downing of Flight PS 752 by IRGC missiles. What are some of the activities of Association of Families of Flight PS 752 victims for holding the Islamic Republic of Iran accountable? Time is yours, sir.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining this panel. Thank you, Sergeant, for this panel. Regarding your question, yeah, we have some specific demands from the Canadian government. One of them is actually recognizing the IRGC as a terrorist entity and implementing Magnitsky Act. And also, we have been in touch in full cooperation with the Canadian government in different levels. But honestly, after 15 months, we can say that the Canadian government strategy was kind of passive. We hope after actually releasing the forensic team report, Canadian forensic team report, the Canadian government step up for actually taking the regime to International Court of Justice or opening a criminal case in Canada. I lost my wife, Elnaz, downing of Flight PS 752, and I'm here on behalf of the Association of Families of Flight PS 752 victim, which is a Canadian established legal entity and represent more than 145 victims of Flight PS 752. Just in the beginning, I like to emphasize that the Iranian regime and IRGC are not separable. When we talk about the terrorist nature of the IRGC, in fact, we are talking about the terrorist nature of the regime. We cannot recognize a branch of IRGC like international branch of IRGC Quds Force as a terrorist group, but recognize the whole IRGC as a normal military force. There are tons of reasons for designating IRGC as a terrorist entity under the Criminal Code of Canada. Here, I'll just mention 10 of them. First, Iranian regime and IRGC have been involved in different terrorist attacks and bombing plots over the past 43 years. For instance, IRGC was found liable in 2018 for the 1996 Hobart Towers bombing in Saudi Arabia, which killed 19 Americans. Another example, IRGC planned a bomb attack in Kenya and plotted an attack in Turkey, and IRGC forces were arrested in 2012. 2, the Iranian regime continued supporting terrorist plots to attack Iranian dissidents in several countries in Europe. In recent years, the Netherlands, Belgium, and Albania have all either arrested or expelled Iranian government officials implicated in various terrorist plots in their respective territories. 3, the IRGC operates and controls a major portion of Iran's economy through both licit and illicit means. The IRGC has been involved in drug dealing, human trafficking, and smuggling different goods. Now, businesses and banks around the world now have a clear duty to ensure that companies with which they conduct financial transactions are not connected to the IRGC in any material way. The IRGC and the Iranian regime have been in collaboration with Taliban and Al-Qaeda in different cases. And 5, the Iranian regime former and current leader several times emphasized that they intend to wipe out Israel. They write down on their missiles that Israel must be destroyed. 6, Mahan Airline, as one of the biggest Iranian airlines, is fully under the control of IRGC. The IRGC uses civilian airliners as a cover to transfer weapons and military forces to different countries like Syria and Lebanon. 7, over the past 43 years, the Iranian regime and IRGC have suppressed protesters. We won't forget bloody November, where thousands of protesters were murdered by the Iranian regime. We won't forget the Havaran mass murder in 1988. As you know, probably IRGC has some secret prisons torturing and murdering innocent people and dissidents. We won't forget the 2009 movement when some protesters were killed in a Kahrizak, a secret prison. 8. The Iranian regime maintains a robust offensive cyber program and has sponsored cyber attacks against foreign governments and private sector entities. 9. Iranian officials like Mohsen Rezai, the former IRGC commander, clearly announced that by hostage taking of Americans or other nationalities and requesting money, they could resolve the regime's financial difficulties. As you know, on January 8, 2020, the regime, amid significant military tension between Iran and US, knowingly kept the airspace open, led to the downing of flight PS752 with IRGC missiles. The Canadian former Foreign Minister Champagne clearly said that he doesn't believe human error narrative, and human error story is just kind of oversimplification of what really happened on that night. Moreover, as the United Nations rapporteur on arbitrary execution on February 22nd explained, numerous unanswered questions are surrounding the downing of flight PS752. And as long as the Iranian regime does not answer these questions, the intentionality scenario is very serious. Recently, the head of the Ukrainian Security Council clearly said that the Iranian regime intentionally shut down the flight PS752. The regime and IRGC won't answer numerous questions surrounding the downing of flight PS752. This is really my question. What should we call a regime firing missiles on a civilian airliner over an international airport? A normal regime or a terrorist regime? Definitely the Iranian regime is not a normal regime. And it's way, I think, more dangerous than any terrorist group. It's an organized terrorist group with money, media, and some lobbyists and apologists in the West. It's actually a terrorist regime, not a normal government. I do believe that for the safety of Canadian residents and all civilians around the world, it's time for the Canadian government and international community to implement targeted, impactful actions against IRGC and the regime. And there are different benefits, but I think two principal benefits of the designation of IRGC as a terrorist organization are, first of all, the messaging, which illustrates in a very dramatic way that the regime is unique among the governments of the world in its use of terrorism as a basic tool of statecraft. And secondly, this gives us new tools for prosecutors to hold accountable people who provide support to the IRGC. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Javad Soleimani, who lost his wife Elnaz Nabiyi on flight PS752.
Sorry, John, just one thing to add. This is really my question. What else they should have done to convince politicians that they are nothing except a terrorist entity? This is really my question.
I am definitely going to mention that during the Q&A session. We're getting there soon, sir. Thank you so much for your time.